Silicon Valley Chamber of Commerce. President Carl Davis, Vice President Carl Davis, Treasury Carl Davis, Secretary of Treasury Carl Davis, Board Member Carl Davis, Carl Davis, Carl Davis, Carl Davis, Carl Davis. So we're going to test y'all on who all the members are at the end of the show. You good? You want some coffee or anything?
No, water is good.
Water?
Thank you.
Can you?
Yes, actually. And if you don't mind, well, I guess I can hear you just fine.
2 2 1 2 check mic
Yes.
1 2. You okay? You need me more in your ears?
Nope.
Less than your
Good to go.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. My radio. Fun. That's what we're having here on this beautiful afternoon. This is Carl Welch, and you're listening to Silicon Valley Business Connection. Carl Davis is on hiatus today. I think he just ran away. He didn't want to be inside this afternoon. So you got me today, Carl Welch with the Silicon Valley Business Connection. And I got to tell you, I am honored. I met this gentleman a little while ago. He is young and good looking. His name is Steve Bacon. His name even sounds good, right? This gentleman is what we call a breakthrough coach. He helps people get through changes in their lives, help them change their behaviors, help them get unstuck. And instead of me saying more about it, I want to introduce to you the world, Mr. Stephen Bacon. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you having me this morning.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. Now explain, everyone knows what a life coach and all these coach things are, but really don't understand. Explain what you do.
Well, in terms you can call it a life coach, but I specialize in helping people have breakthroughs. So my core belief is that you are not your behavior. And what that means is to help people separate who they are as a person from what they do or the results that they're getting in life. And a lot of us tend to mix the two, and then we become stuck because we believe that the results that we're getting in life is just who we are, and that's not true. What we are a set of patterns and behaviors that we've developed at a very early age, and if you can interrupt that pattern, you can completely change that person's behavior.
All right, now, is that a psychological phenomenon? Is that a spiritual or a soulful phenomenon? Or when you help people get unstuck, what's the process you go through?
So think about it like your phone, right? Your phone is split between your hardware and your software, even the computer that you have sitting right there. There's the hardware, and then there's the software. And so typically when I teach classes, I share with them when I pick up the actual hardware, and I say, now if the screen is glitching, if you're trying to do something on your computer and something's going wrong, is it the hardware or the software that's the problem?
Right.
And typically it's the software,
yeah.
right? So the hardware is not useless, it's just the software has some issues. Something happened in the beginning of the programming that caused the computer to glitch. But we take that computer to a specialist, a programmer, who then does some magic, right? And then all of a sudden, voila, the computer's fixed just fine.
So you're the musician. I mean, the magician.
The programmer, right?
You're the programmer.
The computer programmer.
Right.
So we're not that different, right? God created us, which is the hardware, and the world programmed our software. And some of us, most of us, all of us were really soft programmed with some glitches.
Okay. All right. So you brought up God. Is it a religious phenomenon? Do you bring religion in it, or do you really take it as technical or as simple as, okay, the difference is hardware and software?
I take it just that simple between hardware and software.
Do people understand? I mean, how long does it take someone? Let's just say an average person who may be, and when you say stuck, there's a lot of people are stuck on, they can't get over the hump, or they're devastated because of a loss, or they've been married twice and had horrible marriages. I mean, those are all different types of things that you help them get unstuck from, right?
Right.
Okay. So it's not anything just simple as, okay, I'm a writer and I can't write anymore. I got a block, so you got to help me get unstuck. You can do things like that.
Even that too, because what's happening at that point is we're suffering from limiting beliefs at that point. We have there's something that's going on internally that's causing us to behave the way we do or have the problem that we have.
Okay, right there. What is on the average? Generally, everybody who may be stuck, are there 1, 2, 3, 4 things that generally stop people, and then from there, it's personal on whatever the personal issue is? Like, is it fear of this and those type of things that everyone gets stuck with, and then after that it becomes, and my marriage was bad, and so I have a problem with women.
Okay, so let me share my story, because I want to talk about, I'll talk about me, because I don't want to put anybody else's business out in the street, so I'll just use mine, right? I grew up with this really hardcore belief that I was abandoned as a child.
Okay.
Now, I went through 14 different schools growing up. I was born in Hayward, raised in Oakland. My mom, unfortunately, developed a drug addiction by the time I was 6 months old, and so she went on a 30-year crack run, and for a lot of my childhood, I went with her.
Right.
And so, but then somehow, some way, I was taken away from my mom, but I had this belief that I was abandoned as a child, and I had this belief that the people who loved me would leave me. And so because of that, I developed some really bad abandonment issues, anger issues, things like that, which started to ruin my relationships. Well, to make a long story short, as I got older and I started doing a lot of growing and seminars and coaching, I was able to have a conversation with my mom that I found out that, guess what? I never was abandoned. I was never abandoned. I had this belief based on lies, speculation, and blocked memories, and I developed this belief. And so the definition of belief is a feeling of absolute certainty.
Right.
But that doesn't mean
regardless
it's absolute.
Of its truth.
Right, regardless of its truth. So we could develop a belief about anything. And so I had this abandonment issue belief that ruined my marriages, that caused me to have to try to commit suicide, that forced me into anger management, things like that. And so having that conversation with my mom shattered that belief, which completely changed how I thought about myself. And so that's what I mean.
Okay.
We get these deep-seated beliefs that cause us to behave a certain way, but...
And so you overcame that at a young age, because you're what, 30 years old?
33.
Okay, you're 33 years old. You've overcome that. Now you're helping other folks overcome it. But your issue was a sort of a tangible issue. You had a feeling of something that wasn't true based on just the lack of communication or the lack of understanding. What about other people that have deeply rooted issues, or maybe they were abandoned and they have the lack of self-control, lack of self-respect, lack of dignity, lack of honor, want to commit suicide? How can they overcome the hump? What are the things that you tell them as far as the software needs changing or helping? How do you get people who are deeply rooted like that?
Well, first, it's having a conversation and figuring out what their model of the world is what we call their model of the world. None of our realities are real. Right? It's all about, life is about perspective. You change your perspective, you see a whole new world. And so
change the way you look at things changes your perspective on life.
Absolutely. And so no matter what we go through, Will Smith did a famous quote that he said that there's nothing that, I think it was at the Children's Nickelodeon Awards or something like that, he said that no matter what you're going through in life, somebody already went through it and wrote a book about it. Right. So there are no new situations, right?
Right.
And so I sit with them and I try to get their model of the world and how they see their what happened to them or what they're going through, and then I just shift their perspective. I take it, it's in one frame, and I just take it and put it in another frame and see how they look at it then. That's the first thing that we do.
Now, I've had this many times happen to me, or I've looked at things in a certain way, and then something happens, something good or bad, something tragic or something positive, and then the outlook of that same situation is different. It's almost like a flip of the switch or going from day to night. And it's just that simple if you change your mind, right?
Absolutely. And then typically what we get stuck in is our emotions.
Right.
And so that's the second thing that I go through with my clients is their emotions. Is because our emotions are like spidey senses. Spider-Man, whenever he gets that little tingling in the back of his neck, he turns around and goes and finds the danger. But imagine if Spider-Man never turned around and went and found the danger, he just went under the desk and hid.
Right.
Our emotions, so I use a lot of spirituality because it's easier to explain that way. Because where science ends, faith begins. And so I meet people in the middle. Well, our emotions are like spidey senses. They're not designed to harm us or hurt us. They're designed to point us in a direction of a lesson that we're supposed to learn. And so I tell my clients to understand that when you gain the positive learning, the emotion lets go. But when we hold on to the emotion and it's triggered year after year after year, it's because we never learned the lesson.
Right. When we come back, we want to continue talking to Mr. Steve Bacon I want to talk to you about the whole spiritual aspect of it, and not just spiritual as religion, but spiritual as universal, humanistic aspect of it. We're talking to Steve Bacon. He's a breakthrough coach here on Silicon Valley Business Connection. We shall return. Hey, what you got next coming up? I was gonna say, can you get Al Jarreau's Spirit? It's called Spirit. No, that's too high. Go to find Al Jarreau. See if you can find Al Jarreau's Spirit. Oh no. Al Jarreau, We Got By. We got by. Oh, we got by. There you go.
Carl, this is the most likes I've ever gotten on the Facebook Live. It's the most I've seen me get ever. Just people just keep liking it. This is awesome. This is so awesome.
Hey, get to the part where it says, we got by. No, go back. Yeah, go either back or forward. Either. Rubbing and sucking and fucking and laying and praying and swaying and letting and fretting, begetting, lying. All right. Oh, we on time. Good. You're only 10:16. He's got to go. Gotta go. Just get to the middle of anything.
So I'm teaching at Men of Valor in Oakland.
Oh, nice. Really?
Yeah. So I do that every Monday, along with
volunteer or.
Mm-hmm. Well, we it's a contract, and then I volunteer to teach at the Boys and Girls Club every Thursday.
Nice, man.
So I work with the clients that I work with who can pay, so I can go give it to the ones that can't.
Right. No. What you do is, to me, is interesting. You ready?
And I know 12 minutes is hard to get it all out, but
yeah. Well, let's try to get what you want to get out right now. The important information, especially about your book. Let's talk more about how people can reach you. I'm gonna come back in with that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We got by.
Hi, Jennifer.
Welcome back to Silicon Valley Business Connection. That's one of my favorite artists. I've worked with Al Jarreau for years, and that's one of the best songs he ever wrote and produced, called We Got By. So we're sitting here talking to Mr. Steve Bacon, who helps people get by, get over the hump. We talked a little bit earlier about the spirituality aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I used to, you grew up in a tough environment. You overcame it. What do you think was the greatest thing that helped you not only just overcome it, but sustain it, and then decide to help other people?
So right after my suicide attempt, I met a man named Hank, and I had no idea who he was.
That's a song. I met a man named Hank. That's a song.
I did. It was Hank, Margaret, and Cynthia Williams. And if y'all listening, I love you so much.
I love y'all too.
I was about 19, going on 20 years old when Hank walked into my life, and he said, I had no idea who he was. He was just from a group of older black men from the church who said, young man, I heard your story, and I want to help. And he said, let me give you a ride home. And I was just like, all right, I need a ride home anyway.
And you trusted him
I need a ride home.
Okay.
I didn't know if but he mentioned a mutual friend that we had in common, so I was like, okay.
All right.
And he said, if you change how you think about yourself, your whole life would change. And I said, well, how in the heck am I supposed to do that? And he introduced me to personal development. And that's when I started reading my first books and going to seminars and stuff. And I learned that your beliefs equal your thoughts control your emotions control your actions, and your actions control your results. And if you want your results to change, you got to change your beliefs. Mm-hmm. But I had no idea what a belief was. And so I went on this mission to figure out what is beliefs, how did I get mine, when did they start being programmed, and then how can I reprogram it? And that's what I spent the last 14 years like really researching and studying, from books on neurology to psychology to studying neurolinguistic programming to going to Tony Robbins.
And it's all of that.
It's all of that.
It's all of that. Not just to help you it's all of that helped you get to being the man that you are today. And it's not an easy fix. It's a continuous fix. Is it also like drug addicts? Say, for instance, if I'm suicidal because of my abandonment issues, because, being a black male, I've got abandonment issues. But is it a continuous thing, or do I get to a point to where I say, okay, I'm comfortable, I feel positive, I feel confident, now I can move forward without having these issues about my dad not being there?
Yeah, you can completely get over it. I mean, 100%. There is techniques to help you completely get over it. And like I said, when it comes to the emotional piece, because that's really what we suffer from, we wallow in our emotions.
Yeah.
The emotions are there specifically to point you in a direction. Like, for instance, I learned from Tony Robbins that the emotion of anger is an indication to your brain that someone violated one of your core values. Well, if you know that definition, then when you get angry, you can allow it to process.
Be logical.
Right,
Yeah.
and point it in a direction and say, and then ask those questions. So you learn the positive learning, the emotion. For instance, I always ask people, have you ever been mad about something and then later on wasn't mad about it anymore, and when you go back and think about it?
Yeah.
And I typically ask them why. And they say, well, because I just learned that blank, 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 blank. Right. You learn a lesson, the emotion lets go.
Right. To me, that's incredible. Because I think, and of course you learned it from Tony Robbins because he's one of the best.
That's my guy right there.
Yeah, but you learn, and I learned a lot of things from Les Brown. And Les says, one thing Les says is don't bother the little stuff, and it's all little stuff.
Right.
And I mean the growth process that we have, just like now you go through problems. I go through problems with my ex-wife, and I say, look, 3 years from now, this ain't gonna matter.
Right.
So let's just act like it's 3 years from now. Put it in its proper perspective. Bill Cosby had a song about putting life in its proper perspective, and that's what you're saying. As soon as you figure out what your challenge is, what your problem is, point it in the right direction, put it in its proper perspective, so that it doesn't control everything else.
And so when we go back to the spiritual aspect for a second, right? I always use stories from the Bible because they're great illustrators. Mm-hmm. The story of Joseph is the one that's probably kept me alive the most for my adult life since then. And it was that God gave Joseph a vision. Joseph told his brothers. He was beaten, sold as a slave, put into jail for 20 years. Right. That ultimately led him to becoming a Pharaoh's right-hand man. Mm-hmm. And the perspective that I try to share with people from that is God will give you the beginning and the end, but he'll never show you the middle. Right. And so the middle is where you learn the lessons. Right. The middle is everything that we go through. Life is happening to us, or happening for us. Life is happening for you, not to you. Mm-hmm. And so everything that you go through is designed to teach you something to help you become who you're supposed to be. Right. But a lot of us tend to get stuck in our emotions. Right. And I just help people get past that.
Just like Jesus. Life showed you Jesus' life when he was 12 and then when he was 33. They didn't show what happened between 12 and 33.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Tell us how people can find you. Are you on Facebook? Do you have an email? Do you have a phone number?
Yeah, and so we have a new audio coming out, my first audio program coming out, and it's being transcribed into an ebook. It's called You Are Not Your Behavior, Change Your Beliefs, Change Your Life. And it's free. It's going to be a free download for everybody. You can find me at Real Steve Bacon on Instagram. Also Facebook, you can find me at Real Steve Bacon.
Spelled just like it sounds.
Just like it sounds.
Steve Bacon. Okay.
Real STEVEBACON. Real Steve Bacon on both Instagram and Facebook. And we'll be releasing where you can go to put in your information to get the free audio.
Tell us about your book.
So it's my journey through personal development. It's, first of all, using my story to illustrate points of the whole thing I talked about, your beliefs, create your thoughts, emotions, actions, results. And just teaching people how their mind works. I truly believe that if people really understood who they were, right, and the supercomputer that they have in between their brains, that they really, successful people have already figured that out. But the common folks, we really never figured that out. And a lot of it is because this stuff is written so complicated and it's so boring that you never, right, it's just so much. So my goal was to learn as much as I could, put it in elementary form, and use my story to illustrate it in an entertaining way so that people can really get a chance to understand just how much control they have over their life circumstances.
So we won't talk about everybody else, but since I can see my story mirror yours, because I went to 5 high schools as a sophomore. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, just as a sophomore. And then, but I grew up in Long Beach. Okay. My family gangbanged, drew members of the Crips, L7s, Boulevards, Insanes, All right, drug dealers, violence. I've had 10, 12 people in my family killed on the streets, and another 10 to 12 passed away from cancer. So, so the abandonment issues, and no father, mother raised 8 kids. So the abandonment issues are there. So we mirror on our life stories.
Yes.
I'm 54, and I'm still trying to get over the hump. What is the one thing that you would tell me to get me started? Even if it's go read this book, or go jump off a river, or pray. What is the one thing you would say, Carl? This is what you need to get started.
Listen to my audio. But no, in all seriousness, go back and reevaluate. Was life happening for you or happening to you? Right? Because a lot of who you are today is because of the things you went through as a child.
Absolutely.
And when you can go back and so one of the greatest things I did was I wrote out my entire history. Like I literally wrote it out.
Really?
Every memory I can possibly remember, I wrote it out.
Wow.
And this is where gratitude kicks in. This is where you're able to just find just straight gratitude, right? Because when you have gratitude, you can't be mad, you can't be angry, you can't feel sorry for yourself when you have gratitude. Mm-hmm. I wrote out my entire history, and then I went back and read it. And what happened was I started to connect the dots. And I realized if this didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. If this didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. If this didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened.
And did it help you to do that by writing it down, by seeing it as a physical structure and then saying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because when it's in your head, it's everywhere.
Right.
You got all kinds of distractions. When you write it and you just put it in front of you, you're like, man, whose story is this? And it's yours, and it's incredible.
Now, everyone has a story. I remember there's songs, like saying there's a movie, there was a TV show called 16,000 Stories or something like that. Everyone has a story. Mm-hmm. From the spiritual to the psychological to the physiological, and for me as a universal existentialist, how strong do someone have to be to get to that point where they even start looking? Because I know a lot of people that are down and out, they're down and out. They're on their back, they're looking up. They can't see behind them. They can't even, So how strong do they have to be, and where can someone find that strength to even start? Because that's where a lot of people get lost at, by not having strength to start.
In my personal opinion, it's just my opinion, and I could be wrong. It's not about strength. It's about making a decision. It's about making a decision to say, you know what, I just don't want to be here anymore. After my suicide attempt, and my failed suicide attempt at that, I made a decision. I either could live the rest, because I'm not going to try to kill myself again. I either could live the rest of my life miserable, or I can figure out how to change my thinking. And that's what started me on this journey for the last 14 years.
We got about a minute left, okay? You tried to kill yourself. You got over that hump when you were young. Do you still have the desire to, or is there a desire inside of you at any time to just say, okay, I'm going to end it. I got to go back to that.
No, I'm so full of life right now.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. And that is because you have learned what you have taught yourself, and now you are out there teaching other people the same thing.
Right. Just understand this. For those of you that are out there listening, your story is not for you. Just understand that. What you're going through, it's not for you. It's for you to share with somebody else. And that's why it's important for everybody to tell their story of triumph. Simply because it's designed to help some people who can't find their way through hear your story and have some hope.
Steve Bacon, breakthrough coach. He helps people get over the hump. He helps them get unstuck. He teaches them how to change their behavior. Steve, I really appreciate you taking the time to come in the studio and talk to us today. We look forward to your book. We look forward to everything. You guys find him at Real Steve Bacon on Instagram and Facebook.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Have a blessed day.
That was awesome.
Pa-da, pa-da, pa-da. Nice song. Steve Bacon in the house.
I appreciate you, Carl. That was it, guys. That's a wrap.